appreciate them coming. So just sit tight, get comfortable, and we will go through this now. So, again, thank you all for being here today. It's been an incredibly challenging 22 months for all of us since we first learned of Mom's cancer diagnosis. Particularly for our family, the fall brings back a lot of memories of this time last year. We all tried to keep optimistic and encouraging even as things continue to worsen. I start with this to acknowledge that even though we gather here to celebrate Mom's life, we are still grieving, as many of you are. We think about Mom daily, and we miss her dearly. And there is still much pain and anger for how her last months and days were spent. But the beautiful thing we get to do today is remember Mom and why she was so important to us all. So to start, I wanted to share a part of Mom that's important to me: laughter. My mom's laughter brought so much joy to me over my life. It was fun and carefree and loud, and she laughed with every part of her body. And from the time I was a kid to being an adult, finding ways to make her laugh gave me so much satisfaction. And the way she would smile when she laughed, this beautiful smile where her cheeks would rise and her eyes would squint, was so warm. Her laughter and her smile showed how much she loved and cared for people in her life. As many of you know, Mom had an incredible life, an accomplished and interesting career, from her early days in DC working at the EPA to meeting her wonderful husband and my dad during their time in the Peace Corps, and he was a devoted husband of nearly 40 years, to her nearly 30 years working at NOAA on marine mammals and ocean policy. In addition, she raised two remarkable, sophisticated, caring children and has an adorable granddaughter who will let us know when we need to move this event along today. And last but of great importance, the years she spent here in retirement developing friendships and becoming a member of the community here on the Eastern Shore while she pursued her passion for art. We are so proud of her. Her life, her relationships, and her legacy. So with that, we look forward to hearing from the speakers today as they reflect on their relationship with Mom and know how they remember her best. My mom and Patty, they first met in a aerobics class for pregnant women and developed a fast friendship and a great bond. So she was not able to be here today, but she has provided a haiku of sorts, as she calls it, an ode to Becky. Roses are red, her smile was so inviting. Today we celebrate Becky's life through the tears that we are fighting. She was bold yet humble, a woman of competence and grace, who would manage work, kids, and marriage with that $1 million smile always on her face. We met at the Y in prenatal aerobics. She commanded the front row in front of me. I was all about silly antics. I was drawn to her coolness. Her confidence was clear. She chatted and stretched easily while the moves kicked my rear. As we finished that first class, we walked together to our cars. Being each 5 months pregnant, we went for coffee, not the bars. That was the beginning of a long friendship, and the first night we realized our husbands, both from Baltimore, shared friends, Ravens football, and were the same sort of guys. Our families shared Halloweens, birthdays, and parties with both sets of grands. From pumpkin patches to rock climbing, our kids were pals who made getting together often their demand. Sorry about that. Sharing became the operative. Becky's generosity is well known. She's always the first of any group to open up her home. There were professional women's gatherings, cookouts, and birthdays, but my favorite memories were our Saturday getaways. Becky taught me independence, to trust, to believe, that life was just fine, in fact. I always seek a reprieve. From the crazy and the busy to the fun and the now, through her spirited boldness, she showed me how. How to be a good friend, a good partner and mom, by listening, never judging, and always moving ahead, moving on. Becky's an onion to me. So many layers to peel back, each revealing her depth, her intellect, her curiosity well intact. I'll miss you, dear friend. Your smile, kindness, and heart, but your magic lives on in your creativity through your art. Thank you, Patty.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm the daughter-in-law, and I have the honor of reading some stories from Becky's sister, Robin. My big sister, Becky, was always a wonderful big sister, always. Someone to look up to and always there for me. She had been there for me my whole life. I remember our first adventure together. She was 8 and I was 5, alone together on a train, going to visit our grandfather in Chicago, in matching pink and white checkered dresses. I remember in our 20s, Becky brought me with her to help pick out business suits at an exclusive DC dress shop. While Becky was in the dressing room, the saleswoman asked me to leave because I was dressed like a hippie. My big sister got dressed and told the woman she just lost the sale. I felt loved and protected as we left together. As we got older, she was always the first to come visit me wherever I moved to a new place. It's probably helpful when you were in Puerto Rico, right? I always knew she was making sure I was okay. I'll always love her, and she will always be my big sister. I love you, Beck.
The Bruisers met us when we were in Bethesda. In fact, Larry and my dad coached me in baseball to stardom, so this is a really wonderful moment to have them here today. So I'll hand it off to Sue now. Thank you.
Becky was the whole package. Kind, caring, loving, smart, beautiful, genuine. A loving wife, mother, daughter, sister, and friend. A smile that was second to none. A love of nature and all things beautiful and interesting. A superb hostess, making everyone comfortable. My favorite memories are of our weekly walks around the neighborhood. A time to let go and relax our minds. Talk of our children, our husbands, our work, our lives, books, all that makes humanity humanity. Talks of trials and tribulations of mothers and sisters and respective families, gaining comfort from knowing we were not wrestling alone. Let me not forget our frequent trips to Lord & Taylor, usually for sales. Our trips to open houses, what worked within those sales and what didn't. Our trips to restaurants and tips on where else to eat and not. Becky was a true gift, modest about her strengths, an eye for beauty, and a gift to create beauty through her painting. A giving heart, a caring heart, an honest heart, the whole package. She was a gift. I am so grateful to have known her, and I truly miss her.
As you can probably tell from Sue's remarks, she and Becky were kindred spirits. I just have a short story to add to tell you what kindred spirits they really were. I'm guessing a lot of husbands might possibly identify with me in this. Whenever I go shopping with Sue, particularly in a department store, I have to walk behind her, because if I ever get out a couple steps in front of her, she's going to be gone and I'll never find her. Well, I discovered that Becky had that same attribute. I took a business trip to Japan in 1999 when Ed and Becky were living there. And my boss generously gave me a couple days to tack on to the end of the trip for some shopping. So Becky was only too glad to go shopping with me. So we went to this area where I knew, because we had lived there before, where I knew there were some antique shops and some art galleries. So we're walking down the street, and all of a sudden I noticed that Becky has disappeared. I looked around everywhere, I could not find her. I finally tracked her down in a small and wonderful shop that sold ceramics, which is one of the things that Sue and I love. And so Becky and I happened to fall upon this set of dessert plates that I just fell in love with, and so I bought them. And this is an example of one of them. And I don't know how well you can see it from where you're sitting, but these plates are, they're beautiful, they're colorful, they're fun, and they're very vibrant and full of life. And it's just like Becky was. So whenever we use these, I think of her, of course, just from the experience of finding them, but also because it so captures the kind of person that she was. We really miss her.
All right, I'm going to hand over the mic duties to my smaller but beautiful sister, Kelly.
Allison and my mom met on my parents' second tour of Tokyo, and what my father describes as one of the greatest and funnest years of my mother's life. And I think that is in large part because of the friends she made and the adventures they had. So, Allison?
Thank you. Well, as they said, I'm Allison. I live in Wilmington, Delaware with my husband Rick, who's over there. I first met Becky in 2012 at a Get Acquainted event in our home. Ready to go further? In our Homa Viscount apartment building in Tokyo, right after she and Ed moved in. She had just retired and she was having so much fun in every single opportunity that presented itself, especially, you've already heard, shopping. Later, she and I participated in Ikebana flower arranging classes with other neighbors. But Becky, having lived in Japan before, was much better at it than many of us. And I would just like to say, she would just be so happy with the flowers today. And I've already thanked the three women who did it. And I hope all of you will get to too. They are exquisite. Their apartment was filled with many wonderful things from their previous stay in Japan, and also her mom's pottery and art. So it was one of our favorite places to meet for those Ikebana classes. And one night, to supper for Ed's famous chili. Do you remember that?
I don't.
Becky and I
remember it's famous, but I don't remember that.
Becky and I single-handedly drank a bottle of champagne. Not by design, nobody else wanted it. After we all moved stateside again, there were yearly reunions in Charleston, Nashville, Denver, Chicago, Sarasota, and Seattle. Becky attended all 6 and co-chaired in Chicago. She was such an integral part of these that I've already heard from some other attendees that our next one in San Antonio would just not be the same without her enthusiasm for spontaneous outings of every kind, especially, you know it, shopping. I've just added something to that, which is at the entry when you came in addition to the pretty little flower arrangement there, there's a caricature of Becky, and apparently the family didn't know exactly what the background of that was, but I do. It was in Sarasota. The woman who was co-hosting that one lived on the water in Sarasota and invited us all to her house, which was similar to this, right on the water with just beautiful grounds and so forth and so forth. Well, she had a caricaturist there, and that is from that night. So now you know. Today, I am wearing this scarf that Becky gave me 2 years ago. I suspect it's from some delightful little shop right in this area. So whoever has that shop, thank you very much. I remember how giddy Becky was when she found the Onancock house and how excited she was to get to live right on the water. And truly, I think she was telling me about this within the first 10 days, maybe, possibly 2 weeks after finding it. Truly, she almost couldn't sit in her chair. And the best part in her mind was that there was a garage opening in 2 directions with 2 driveways to store all the water gear and outdoor equipment. What a find. And then to get to immerse herself in painting classes, dining groups, house and garden tours, newcomers events, sightseeing. She just loved it here, and she squeezed in a lot of living in those few years. It's obvious how many friends she made by how many of you are here today. When Becky died, I notified a few neighbors from our Homot Viscount apartment building in Tokyo, and these are their responses. From Debbie Hay in Toronto, this is such very sad news, devastating in fact. Becky was always such a happy, smiling person, and I feel blessed to have known her. This is such a tragedy for her family and all who have known her. I have her painting hanging in one of our bedrooms, and it is now even more meaningful. I have the opposite painting. They were both reflections, and one was done in oranges and greens and yellows, and the other one was done in blues and greens to show 2 seasons. And I also think that's a wonderful painting. From Vicki Beneke in Wisconsin, my first and best memory of Becky is the way her whole face lit up when she smiled or laughed. Those eyes, whether she was greeting you and glad to see you, or just feeling a bit mischievous, those eyes twinkled. I miss that. From Rita Dwovetti in Denver, one thing for sure, how amazing and kind she was to everyone. Our Ikebana group, which was every Friday, and afterwards we would go for lunch, and that was one of our favorite things to do. And also sometimes we would go to the ANA Intercontinental Hotel for happy hour, and we would talk about that 5 p.m. bell, which was supposed to ring for Homot ladies to go out for drinks. So many memories, miss her so much. It's actually for their security and communication system, but that's not how we Homot Boycott ladies interpreted it. From Susan Hane in Washington, D.C., oh my goodness, this is such sad news. I feel awful for her family. I just can't believe this. And then I have words from somebody who could not be here today, and she asked me to read this. Colleen Osterauer lives in New York. My dear friend Becky, oh how I will miss you. Becky was the very first friend that I made in Japan when I moved there for my husband's job. I met her the day we arrived, and we immediately became fast friends. She remained as one of my dearest friends even when we all moved back to the States. She was such a warm and caring person, a truly bright light. Her genuine smile, her bubbly, almost giddy laugh, and her enthusiasm towards everything was contagious. I can honestly say that she alone had the greatest impact on my having such a wonderful experience while living in Tokyo. Every day was an adventure in Tokyo. We went on tours. We went to luncheons. We made onigiri rice cakes for the poor. We took classes in everything from ikebana Japanese flower arranging to shibori, Japanese indigo tie-dyeing, to aerobic classes, to yoga. We went to museums, to flower festivals in parks, to temples and shrines. And there was lots of, you know it, shopping, 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 at shrine sales and flea markets mostly. None of these fun experiences would have been the same without her. Becky's knowledge of Japanese history, culture, and behavior always astonished me. Having her around was like having a private tutor. She shared this knowledge freely and easily with everyone and anyone, including myself, and helped us all navigate a country where we did not know the customs or the language. She often interpreted the menu for us at lunches. She was always willing to try and taste new foods, always wanting to share her plate with others, always eating foods I couldn't even pronounce and definitely didn't recognize. She was way more daring than I. She did introduce us to foods we would not have eaten otherwise. You are all here because you knew and loved Becky as I did. She will always be remembered for the way she made people feel. Special, important, and well worth the time she spent getting to know you, while also sharing her knowledge, her insights, her passions, her love and appreciation of art, and her many gifts with you. Becky was one special friend that can never be replaced. I will miss you, dear friend.
So these are Ed's words. I met Becky in July of 1978. We were in Seattle beginning our Peace Corps orientation. We were on our way to the Philippines, where we would spend the next 2 years and where we would fall in love. After the Philippines, we moved to Texas in the fall of 1980 to begin our graduate studies at Texas A&M University. Becky was pursuing a master's degree in public administration while working full-time as a Marine agent for the Sea Grant program. Some might think that working full-time while pursuing a graduate degree was a heavy load, but it was indicative of Becky's drive and ambition. I never heard her say, "I've got too much to do," nor did she ever feel overwhelmed. She was not one to shirk her work. She was always willing to step up and do what needed to be done. Some of you, I'm sure, have witnessed this firsthand. In early July 1981, prior to her turning 30, Becky informed me that she was not going to be a spinster and that we needed to get married. Not after we graduated, which was my plan, but right away. This taught me a lot about Becky's negotiating style. It turns out that she was more of a dictator than a negotiator, and she would never give an inch. My way or the highway. So on the day after she turned 30, we were married by a justice of the peace in Bryan, Texas, with no family present and only a couple of graduate student buddies to serve as witnesses. You might think a hasty marriage would result in a hasty divorce. However, in July of this year, we would have been married for 40 years. Wow. Our love endured, and our time together resulted in 2 wonderful children, a grandchild, and a lifetime of great memories that I will always cherish. After Becky died, I learned something about love. I thought to myself, I loved her so much, but as soon as I heard those words in my mind, I knew the past tense was wrong, and I still love her, and I always will. Becky greatly enjoyed travel, and in our 40 plus years together, we visited many places: Australia, Asia, South America, Europe, and the Eastern Shore of Virginia. Why the Eastern Shore of Virginia? We discovered a wonderful community here, and Becky fell in love with it, especially the art scene. On one of our stays here in early 2016, she toured a house for sale on Market Street. She then informed me that she had to have this house. It was not the house that I would have selected. However, knowing her negotiating skill as I did, I simply said, "Where do I sign?" Once we moved to the Eastern Shore full-time, she rented a studio at the historic Hancock School and began to paint, constantly and continuously. Painting gave her tremendous pleasure, and she was never happier than when she was in her studio. We often told each other that one of the best decisions we ever made as a couple was to move to Hancock. Becky would be surprised and humbled by the turnout today. I don't think she realized the impact she had on people. In the dozens of condolence cards we received, some of you commented on an encounter with Becky that had a positive influence in your life. Many of you mentioned Becky's smile. Her smile was ever present and could light up a room. You've seen her smile on display here in many of the pictures on the TV screens inside. Think of her smile as you continue to gather here today and when you think of her in the future. I am thankful for you all for being here to share in this event.
Gathered here to remember her. Oops, there we go. And it's been nice to meet some of the people from her past, and welcome to paradise. We're here on the Eastern Shore, and it's just beautiful here. Becky's family, Kelly, Kirby, Rachel, Robin, great to see you. And it's just such a healing balm to be together with you. I think we've all needed this. And the time has passed that we're in a better place, but we remember her forever. How do I remember Becky? Wow, she was intelligent, accomplished, humble, funny. She had a quirky sense of humor. She had amazing flair and an aesthetic as an accomplished artist, a post-retirement passion that she just loved. She was actually like sunshine on a cloudy day. Any day she would come into her studio was a good day, and we spent hours whiled away in her studio or my office just talking away about everything, nothing, and one of the best times of my life. She was a natural leader as well. She jumped into this new community and embraced it. She joined the town business and civic association. She helped out with the home and garden tour. She became a master naturalist. She was such a lover of outdoors and nature. She even planted her own pocket park in Onancock, which we now fondly call Becky's Garden. She was also on the board of the Eastern Shore Art League. She rose to president. She was on the board of the Historical Society. And she was a major supporter and volunteer for Historic Onancock School. Her nature-loving, water-loving, and the fact that she was the greatest day trip partner, and I will repeat again, most of it was shopping, and always ended up centering around food as well. She ate with gusto, she loved food, she belonged to a dinner group, and I remember talking all the time with her about what she was fixing, and then I'd hear in total detail what she ate afterwards. I was always a little jealous of that group. Sounds like a bunch of great chefs, and I know Ed and Becky were two of those great chefs. I first met Becky about a month or so after they moved into their house on Market Street. She came to Historic Onancock School because we had an available studio. She just walked in and was this beautiful, bubbly soul with twinkling eyes, and there was that dazzling smile. Following that, there were 3 days where we spent time, about 6 or 8 hours a day, painting that studio. And we learned so much about each other, and by the time we finished talking about the fact that she moved from my hometown of Bethesda and the commonalities there, then I found out that Ed was a longtime best friend, good friend, and roommate of my cousin who came down today. And the hits just kept on coming. We're both scientists. We love nature, we loved art, and I felt like I had met my cosmic sister. It was so wonderful when she moved in. Her studio, she was there frequently. And then the studio walls started being filled with art. And then the art was filling up the chalkboard ledges of the old classroom. And then it started leaning against the floor. And it was definitely time for Becky to start entering her art into some of the Art League shows. So she at first was like, I don't know, I don't think I'm good enough. Shall I do it? So we picked out the first few that she put in, and all of a sudden Becky's getting honorable mentions, seconds, firsts, and another first. So she was just absolutely gobsmacked. She was just thrilled that her art was being accepted. She once told me that painting was addictive, occasionally frustrating, but it was just fun to work through that and get to that meditative state, which she just thrived on. So she always was trying to get me to paint more, and other people too. I would always hear her say, paint more, you've got to paint more to get there. So that prolific passion has now grown to be a retrospective of an artist's life. Many of us are now lucky enough to own a piece and cherish it through the many paintings that she left behind, and what a beautiful legacy that is. Now there is the Becky Roots Art Memorial Scholarship that has been formed through Eastern Shore Art League. It was started with a gift from Becky and has now grown because of all the artwork that has been sold. Becky also made a major gift to our nonprofit, Historico Nancock School. This donation was transformative in helping us fund the installation of an ADA lift in our 100-year-old school community center. This was during the pandemic when fundraising just wasn't possible. Her thoughtfulness and generosity will never be forgotten. With Becky's illness, we saw such a brave warrior. She fought with grit and she fought with grace, and we all wanted to take that pain away. And now she's pain-free, and we have our memories. We'll always remember Becky fondly because she gave each one of us all her love and joy every time we were with her. And love leaves no memory that anyone can ever steal. How lucky we are to have gotten to know Becky, and how lucky are we to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. Ms. Becky.
Thank you, Joni. And with that, I would love to thank the speakers. Again, the women who put the flowers together, my brother for helping me MC this event, my father for organizing it. And so if we could just raise a toast to the woman she was, to the spirit she had, and to the love she gave. To Becky.